Folks, I've seen some situations where sellers have no idea what they owe and it causes big problems. I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for the Peel and Durham region for week ending March 13th, 2024. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Up here, there's a link to my calendar. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. And if you've not subscribed, but you're here every week, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. So, sellers. When we talk about, say, in general, closing costs, everybody right away thinks of the buyer. The buyer has closing costs. And in my consultation with buyers before we start working together, I speak to them about closing costs, land transfer tax, legal fees, etc. It's an important part. So if the buyer is buying for $1 million, they're going to need more money than just $1 million to buy. But I'm not talking about buyers in this scenario here right now. I'm talking about sellers. If a seller is selling for, if their mortgage, let's say, is $1 million, and they're selling for $1 million, that seller needs to usually come up with more, not usually, in every case, is going to come up with more money than just the purchase price, because it's not even Steven where my mortgage is $1 million, my purchase price that I sold the home for is $1 million. It's not even Steven. The seller has expenses. Apart from legal fees, it can cost a lot of money. It can be a significant amount of money to close that mortgage early, prepayment penalties on the mortgage. And there's sellers that just don't know their numbers, and right at the last minute when the home is supposed to close, they get stuck. They are financially strapped, some of these sellers. That's why they're choosing to sell. The value isn't there where they have a lot of equity in their home or no equity in their home, and they get stuck. Now, I've seen some sellers that are underwater. Underwater meaning their mortgage is here, their home value is less than their mortgage. So their mortgage is $1 million, their home sells for $900,000 or is valued at $900,000. And they think, the sellers, that no problem, I'm just going to sell it for whatever I can, and the difference, the bank, I'll just keep paying the bank off. It doesn't work like that. And it's pretty naive a view of a seller to even think that. When the buyer is buying your home, there can be nothing on title. So if a mortgage is registered on title because you as a seller have a mortgage, well, that needs to be fully paid to the bank. And then the buyers, whoever they're using to get their mortgage, puts their mortgage on title on that home. It's really simple. The bank representing the seller, they're not going to, no problem, you're about $100,000 short, no problem, just pay us off over the next couple of years. It doesn't work like that. The bank wants all their money or they're going to keep hold of your home, meaning you can't close. So not only do you have this situation where your home's value is less than what you owe and you can't close, you now have a buyer who had full intentions of moving into your home on closing, who maybe sold their home to move into yours, who's got all their furniture packed, they've made plans to move into your home, and you, the seller, you can't close. So you got your financial issues with the bank, and now you have a buyer potentially who's going to sue you. You're in a position to be sued by the buyer for all their costs and expenses. So as a seller, you really, really need to know your numbers, especially if you're in a financial predicament. Now, these expenses and costs and, closing the mortgage earlier and paying it off earlier before the mortgage term, there's always costs and expenses involved and fees and penalties with that. A lot of sellers don't even pay attention to that because they have 200, 300, 400, 500,000 in equity in their home, meaning the value is here, but the mortgage is this low. They don't even think about it. It all gets absorbed in the closing, and those are the fees. They pay it, and their lawyer does all the work, and they move on. I'm not talking about those sellers. Those sellers have no issues with closing. I'm talking about the ones where what they owe and what their home's value is either very close to being the same or the value is lower. And we're seeing more and more of those today. You really got to know your numbers. And the only way for you to close on that deal is to come up with that shortfall. You're going to have a hard time getting a loan. Most sellers, when they get loans, the value of their home is used in acquiring that loan. You don't have that option if the scenario of price versus mortgage that I just explained is there. You don't have that option to get a loan against the value of your home because it just isn't there. So you're probably borrowing from some other means, family, friends, something, to pay off the shortfall in closing. It is a very serious situation. It's happening more and more. You need to know your numbers before you sell. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. Now, let's get into the numbers. Make sure you check out this large executive townhome that backs onto a forest. The video's at the end of this video. Let's get into the numbers. So today we're looking at Mississauga, Brampton, and Durham region. For Durham, I'm using Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as my Durham sample, and we're only looking at data pertaining to detached properties. So here's a quick summary. Mississauga, Durham, Brampton, and I put a box around here. So if we go back approximately a month from February 7th to 14th, I just took kind of 4 weeks back. Fast forward to where we are now for week ending March 13th. In most cases, these are the prices today now are a bit higher than what they were 4 weeks ago. Now, Mississauga is much higher than what Durham and Brampton have done over the previous 4 weeks. But, you know, there's also individual areas and individual markets within these areas that will have their own price fluctuations up or down. We're going to start off with Mississauga. For week ending March 13th, 45 detached properties were sold. 2 of those were at $2 million or more. Now, sales did go down by 2. It's not a significant amount. 2 less sales this week versus the previous week. But overall, I'm still looking at it that sales are trending up, even though they're down by 2 from the previous week. Average sold price came down quite a bit from the previous week. It's now at $1,476,000. Now, let's look at this. So overall, I'd be saying sales are trending up, even though this is way down. But when we kind of look down here at properties selling at $2 million or more, 7 sold at $2 million, 8 sold at $2 million or more. And those 2 weeks, average sold price was way up there, around $1.5 million. 2 selling at $2 million or more is more in line with what we've been seeing for most of the year. And it takes the average price kind of in line to where we were previously. Still trending a little bit up if we get rid of those 2 really big weeks. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at things now. Trending up. I don't think 1.5 is really a realistic price based on how many were selling at $2 million or more. Compared to last year, let me just go back 1 second. Yes, 1,476 is 4% higher than where we were this time a year ago. The median price of 1,355 is 2% lower than where we were this time a year ago. The dotted line, that's a 4-week moving average. Kind of looks like it's trending up. It's not so aggressive, but trending up. Of the 45 that sold, 47% sold at list price or more. That percentage is trending upwards. 96 were listed. So listings are also trending upwards. Active listings, not aggressively and not by much, but trending upwards. And months of inventory did go up over the previous week. It's now sitting at 1.6 months of inventory. But overall, over the past 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, it is trending down. Above 3 months of inventory, between 3 to 5, we say is a balanced market. At 1.6, below 3 months, it's a seller's market. It's kind of in the middle there, so it's not an aggressive seller's market. Price is trending up, but not aggressively. That's what's happening in Mississauga for detached properties. Here's Brampton. 62 detached properties were sold. No property sold at $2 million or more. Average price, $1,175,000. There was a week here where 4 properties sold at $2 million or more, and that shot the average sold price up quite a bit. If we get rid of the high and kind of just say, okay, that was an abnormal week, it kind of looks like average sold prices are either flat or trending up just slightly. Compared to last year, 1175 is 4% lower than where we were this time a year ago. The median price is 4% lower as well versus year over year. Now the dotted line now we look at here, you know, folks, we put the numbers on the board. These are the actual real numbers, but sometimes we gotta really try to understand what they really mean. And, you know, when I say we take the high out of the equation, well, when I'm looking at the dotted line, I know that it's taken those high numbers as part of the equation, and it kind of pulls the trend line up. And I know that's not really necessarily indicative of what's normally happening week in and week out. So that's when I kind of look at this thing and say, okay, it's trending up, but maybe it's not trending up as much as it should, as much as it's actually showing. 62 were sold. Half of those sold at list price or more. So here's something else that when I look at that percentage, 50%, that's a percentage that's increasing as far as properties selling at list price or more. That kind of plays into, well then, you know, it kind of, I feel better about saying, yeah, prices are kind of trending up, not that aggressively. That percentage is trending up, kind of shows that, look, it's becoming a little bit more competitive, not a lot. 156 were listed, so that's telling me more properties are being put on the market. Again, these are just detached properties. Active listings, the amount of properties available for sale, is trending up, and months of inventory came down. It's now sitting at 1.6 months of inventory. Over the last 4 weeks, it has gone up and down, but it hasn't shot up into the balanced market territory. It hasn't shot up over 3 months or even come close to 3 months of inventory. 2.2 was the highest. Now we're at 1.6, very much into the seller's market category, but it's not an aggressive seller's market. Here's Durham. 44 detached properties were sold. One of those was at $2 million or more. Again, I remind you, for Durham, I'm using Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as my Durham sample. Average sold price is now $1,195,000. Even if we take out the 1 week here that was just kind of out of the ordinary, a little bit abnormal in price, it kind of shows prices pretty significantly trending upwards in the Durham region. Compared to last year, 1195 is 1% higher than last year's average price. The median price is 5% lower than where we were this time a year ago. But the dotted line, the 4-week moving average, is trending up both for median and average prices. 44 were listed, 55% sold at list price or more. 44 were sold, 55% sold at list price or more. 66 detached properties were listed. Active listings continuing to climb. but not aggressively. It's, you know, we went from 184 to 195 to 203. It's not really jumping off the page there, the amount of properties being available for sale. 1.1 is the months of inventory. So for the last 3 weeks, it has started to increase, but 1.1 is really low when it comes to months of inventory. No question, we are sitting in a seller's market, especially when we're talking about the Durham region, and in particular, Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby. Here's a quick summary. We are not in a buyer's market. I've got condos up here. We are most likely, for Mississauga, Brampton, and Durham, not in a balanced market either. Condos are more in a balanced market, but we're pretty much in a seller's market. Except for the Durham region, Mississauga and Brampton, you will find pockets that may be feeling like a balanced market, but it's generally a seller's market, but not an aggressive seller's market. What does that mean? You can expect prices to maybe be trending up, but not so aggressively. And you can have properties listed at with say an auction type effect where they listed low with an offer night, but maybe not as many as before where it was a bit more aggressive as a seller's type of market. So that's kind of the market we're looking at right now. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Folks, not every townhouse is created the same. This upscale townhouse has a huge lot. It backs onto a forest, has 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a big office, and is over 2,300 square feet. Have a look.